Hey, I'm Lone Candle, and I'm here to tell you the truth about Trump's strike on Syria. And by that, I mean my thoughts on the topic. I'm going to tell you why I support this strike, and why, contrary to repeated misleading commentary, Trump's policy, as of right now, is basically the same as Obama's. First of all, this strike wasn't some massive shock and awe, woo! America, coming to save the day! No, this blew up a handful of things and had no substantial effect on the military capabilities of the Assad regime. This was a country-to-country slap on the wrist. The point isn't to damage Assad so greatly that he just can't go on, but instead to show him that the U.S. is willing to act when he uses chemical weapons. The point isn't to change the balance of power in Syria, but to discourage the use and spread of weapons of mass destruction in Syria and around the world. If the U.S. can consistently stand up against weapons of mass destruction, then some world leaders will think, shit, might as well not build them, because I can't use them anyways. Not worth it if America's gonna attack me. And this is on top of the potential sanctions and ire of the world if I make these damn things. While the deaths in Syria are horrible, there's gonna be a lot more death in wars, rebellions, and terrorist attacks if more countries have chemical weapons like sarin gas. This is more than a humanitarian concern. If the U.S. needs to get militarily involved somewhere, for whatever reason, our military members will have more difficulty if enemies have such weapons. We are the baddest of the bad with conventional weapons, so we really don't want some trump card thrown into the mix that could make an intervention more costly. And remember, the more countries that have chemical weapons, the more that exist for terrorists to steal. This is probably the biggest concern. On the battlefield, sarin gas probably isn't all that more deadly than conventional weapons. But dying from a colorless, odorless agent that uses your own nervous system against you is terrifying. And terrorists would love to get their hands on it. So I support the strike for the sake of deterring WMD use and construction, for maintaining norms against chemical weapons, and for an additional reason of maintaining U.S. credibility of enforcing its own deals and red lines. A lot of people have taken this strike as a stark difference between Obama and Trump. But really, it's the continuation of the same policy. If Assad tried another sarin gas attack like this during the Obama administration, would a similar American strike have happened? Yeah, I think so. People forget that Obama was all ready to strike Assad for his sarin gas use. It looked like his finger had halfway pressed in the button. But then there was a flurry of diplomatic activity that changed our calculus. Sure, we didn't attack, but it appeared that Assad had given up all his sarin gas. That's a big deal. And totally worth not striking over. The whole point of striking is to deter the use of the weapon. So why strike when you can make them give it up instead? If during the Obama administration, Assad and the Russians had proven that they betrayed this agreement, you damn well better believe Obama would have struck for betraying him personally and to deter the use of weapons like sarin gas. As it happened, the betrayal was revealed during the Trump administration, probably because Trump spoke such soft words toward Assad that Assad thought he could get away with it. So Trump did what Obama would have in the same situation, a strike to punish and deter Assad. And Assad's sarin gas use seemed to have led to a change in Trump's overall Syria policy to one that is basically the same as Obama's. Obama officially wanted Assad to go, but wasn't willing to do too much to get us there. He held out hope for diplomatic talks. Trump used to say it was perfectly fine if Assad stayed in power, and he refused to condemn the Russians for supporting him. Now, his administration is coming out much stronger against the Russians, as well as saying about Assad, he needs to go. But we're not willing to do too much about that. Yeah, maybe negotiations will find a solution. That was Obama's policy. So all this nonsense you hear about Obama being feckless and Trump being strong is made by ignorant fools who haven't followed the history of these events. Or it's spoken by partisan liars. A lot has been made of Trump's true motivations. I don't know what they were, but the idea that he was just emotionally motivated by Fox News stories showing the dead seems plausible to me. But who knows? Maybe National Security Advisor McMaster made a cogent argument that Trump was persuaded by. Either way, I think the president made the right decision, and I commend him for it. I like to commend people for doing things that I agree with. Yeah. But I do have one major concern that makes me doubt all of this. I think the strike was unconstitutional. The founders and the Constitution are pretty clear. The power of the decision of going to war is in the hands of Congress. Sending Tomahawk missiles that blow up another country's military installations is an act of war. Look, our Constitution is probably outdated. It probably needs provisions that allow the executive to take actions like this. The U.S. is now a grand world power, and technology allows us to act around the world. Threats from that same technology and the responsibility of being the world's greatest power make us need to act around the world. But our Constitution has not been amended. It still gives the decision of acts of war to the Congress. And as long as it still does, military strikes without congressional approval are unconstitutional. You can argue that the Congressional Act passed after 9/11 to allow the president to strike terrorists and terrorist harborers justifies strikes against ISIS, a terrorist group. But it is way too big of a stretch to say it justifies an attack against a dictator for the purpose of deterring chemical weapon use. Some may quote precedent of previous presidents making military strikes without congressional authorization. But this just means other presidents have also broken the Constitution. Most attempts to justify Trump's strike as constitutional seem to be lawyerly attempts to excuse whatever the president wants to do. I think the best argument for the strike being constitutional is just to say that the War Powers Clause of the Constitution doesn't apply. Sure, the strike was an act of war, but not a full-blown war, and this is all the Constitution refers to. I think quotes from the founders show that they were referring to all deadly acts of war. But also important, are we really a constitutional democracy if our Constitution doesn't speak to when our executive can and cannot use deadly force? I say no. So we have to realize that military strikes without congressional approval violate the Constitution until we amend it to speak more narrowly on the topic. Well, I'm Lone Candle. Like me, comment me, love me.